Hi there. This is the second time I've done this Gnostic vlog number 16. Because I think, all this coronavirus news, it does have an effect on one psychologically. It does stimulate the midbrain and even the hindbrain, and sends the frontal lobes of the brain into kind of recession, as it were, into despair and negativity. But I was contemplating the coronavirus and its implications and what it means in the short term and the long term, and indeed in the medium term. And I came up here with 10 wisdom points, as I rather pretentiously call them. But I mean, they're just sort of 10 points of contemplation. And the first one is here and now is good um, for enlightenment, because here and now are soon or slowly gone. John Lennon said that life happens to you whilst you're busy making other plans. So you plan to do your meditation and your pranayam, your breath awareness, or you plan to do your rituals or your puja, and then life happens to you. There's lots of things that happen to interfere with your plans, and to upset the apple cart. So be aware that here and now, right here and now, I mean, is good for attaining enlightenment. But of course, if you're a gradualist, then you will say, well, this happens over time. But time and place are perhaps not so permanent as we like to think they are. In fact, all is impermanent. And therefore, the messages come from your mobile phone. Uh, yes, we're all sailing on the Titanic. That is something that film is a metaphor for life in the realm of the demiurge. Watch the various films throughout the decades, and see if you can spot all the nuances of metaphor within those films. I'm not going to go into them here, but some of us are going to dress for dinner, and some of us in the steerage are going to panic big time. And some people are going to get on lifeboats and sail away and get rescued by some passing ship, which is really dandy for them. Keep your eyes on the wheel, or you'll end up. No, keep your eyes on the road, or you'll end up on the wheel. That's a quote from a lyric from Jim Morrison on the Doors. And I think the wheel is a symbol for the wheel of samsara, the wheel of birth and death. So if you don't keep your eye on the spiritual path, you don't keep your focus there, then you're doomed to come back and back again, either sort of in this life, as it were, or over different lives, if you believe in reincarnation. But even if you don't believe in reincarnation, you're going to be on the wheel of rising and falling emotionally, unless you follow the spiritual path. So that's why I included that. I was also going to put my own little interpretation of that a person, as looking at the stars, falls down a hole, which I think is another sort of interpretation of that Jim Morrison lyric. The other one, yeah, eventually all the doors are closed. There's a saying in English that one door closes, another opens, and usually referring to love and romance. But of course, eventually all the doors will close, and that's your lot. um, yes, the answer to every oracle is death. Aleister Crowley, famous mnemonic, I think, from the book of Tarot, the book of Thoth, which is Crowley's Tarot. Very, very true. I mean, and it's kind of a satirical, mocking bit of satire towards oracles and predicting the future, because the only future was death and taxes, isn't it? Really, that's the It's the only future that awaits us. We have to pay our taxes, and death are the wages of sin. So that's really, really true. And underneath all predictions, well, they all refer to an impermanent state of existence, don't they? The future, because the only real future is death itself. Everything, everything rises, falls, gives us hope, appalls, goes forward, backwards, wins, seaward, landward. Every straight line is an eclipse of a circle. That actually word is wrong. It should be ellipsis of a circle. So you think you're on a straight line, possibly going upwards and everything going better, but in fact you're on an ellipsis of a circle which you cannot see, which takes you eventually round to where you started before, which ultimately in real terms is nowhere at all. Future persons will not pity the fall of civilization as I do my own now. When I get angry, when I lose my temper, I'm always pitying, feeling sorry for the mass of people, feeling sorry for humanity. I'm sort of have this kind of gooey-eyed view of humanity and how we could be better than we are now, and how everything could be perfect and wonderful. I'm a utopianist at heart, and I get frustrated that utopia hasn't come yet. Well, civilizations come and go, and we look back at the Mayans and we don't really care about their end. We don't really care about the North American Indians having been virtually wiped out by measles, which Westerners introduced, not deliberately, but just by going there they did. So here we are now, looking at our own civilization, perhaps going west as a result of a virus. And the elephant has every reason to be frightened of the mouse, as the mouse has every reason to be frightened of the microscopic virus. But of course, the mouse and the elephant don't know about the microscopic virus. We are hoodwinked, we are hooded as we go through life, because we don't really realize that microbes are planning our destruction, which they are. Death is annoying. Yeah. Because you don't get to see the next chapter, the next iteration of humanity. But on the other hand, perhaps that is a blessing, because civilizations, they could end, but they could end very messily and painfully and horribly. And you might actually, by dying now, avoid the horror of existing in a post-apocalyptic civilization. Now, this is very interesting here. Too many have seen it. The demiurge must make us blind again. I think a lot of people, via the internet and mass media and books and all that, the last few decades, and even before the internet, of course, going right back, maybe hundreds of years, more and more people have started to see the spiritual, experience the spiritual, practice spirituality, follow a spiritual path. They have kept their eyes on the road and not on the wheel. They have focused on on God and not on the demiurge. So the demiurge has to bring in these apocalyptic and catastrophic moments in history in order to blind us, in order to push us back from frontal lobe neuroprocessing to mid-brain processing, where we just go into instinctual fear and we worry about our children and their children, and we blame other people, and we say, don't come near us, you've got the coronavirus, go keep away from me. And we go into isolation and madness of isolation. So, the demiurge is always, we're always pushed back down into the mud. And I don't blame the demiurge for doing this, because it needs to feed psychically off our fear, off our mid-brain neuroactivity. That's where it gets its psychic energy from, to put it in metaphysical terms. And so I understand that. and I understand that the demiurge is evil by nature. It's not a fallen angel. It's not going to seek redemption. It is just within its nature. It is as it is, and the world is as it is. Um, and lastly, antibiotics are a tissue-thin wall against death when we have corrupted ourselves internally. This is a bit of a controversial point to end, though, because I don't think I mean antibiotics at all, really. Sort of irrelevant to this viral argument, anyway. But I just mean sort of science and technology, really. And we think we've got it made, and we think we've got it sussed, but in fact we haven't. But we have also reduced our immune systems through stress and modern living, and through pollution of various kinds, all sorts of kinds of pollution, with which we have reduced our immune systems and made us more vulnerable to viral infection. And of course, the thing about a virus is that it's the body's reaction to a virus that causes the real damage. And it's very often our reaction to threat that does more harm than the threat itself, which is something I mentioned in a video before. So you have to understand that as well. That that panic can often, there's a fire in the stadium, but in the panic and the stampede, more people are killed by the stampede than they are by the fire. In fact, nobody probably would have been killed by the fire if everybody remained calm and evacuated the area orderly. But because there's a stampede, people die. And that's the stampede is the reaction to the fire in the stadium, right? But I mean, I know of stadium that are better organised now, so they try and prevent that from happening. But certainly, it used to happen quite often. It happened in the UK, of course, very famously with Liverpool. But anyway, so we come back to the one which is at 12 o'clock, the wisdom point, which is enlightenment is here and now, because we don't have the here and now, really. All is impermanent, and we're all sailing on the Titanic. So you need to go into your meditation here and now, rather than waiting for later. When conditions are better, because they might not be better, they might in fact be worse. These are wisdom points. Sometimes wisdom points can be rather cynical and rather depressing, actually. But the idea is wisdom is that you get everything into perspective and you get your life into perspective, and this actually can have a great psychological positive influence on you. In fact, if you do that, so that's all I'm trying to do here in my own little way, and I hope that you find some of these points useful in your contemplation of this universe and our place in it.